Beneath the ocean's surface lies a world as mysterious as unforgiving. Sharks, often misunderstood, cruise these depths with ancient precision, detecting movement, electrical signals, and even a drop of blood from miles away. Attacks are rare, but when they strike, it's sudden, violent, and often without warning. These aren't mindless killers. They're apex predators acting on instinct in a realm we barely comprehend. From peaceful swims turned into nightmares to unexpected encounters in open water, this video will explore 6 chilling shark attack stories that show how fast everything can change. In 2013, the waters surrounding Cape Point, South Africa, remained as treacherous as they had been for centuries. Known to local fishermen as the graveyard of ships, this stretch where the Atlantic and Indian Oceans collided has claimed countless vessels since the 1500s. The jagged rocks and unpredictable currents made navigation difficult, but the unseen predators beneath the surface posed an equally formidable threat. The South African Navy maintained a small research outpost nearby, monitoring shipping lanes and conducting oceanic studies in these biologically diverse waters, home to one of the world's largest populations of great white sharks. Lieutenant Commander Thabo Nkosi, Ensign Dumsani Venter, and Petty Officer Kafilwe Mabaso were part of a 6-person crew aboard the SNS Protea, a 12-meter research vessel deployed for routine sonar testing. The team had been mapping underwater topography and collecting acoustic data on marine life activity for the past 3 days. Lieutenant Commander Nkosi, a 15-year veteran with extensive experience in these waters, had expressed mild concern about the unusually high shark activity reported by local fishermen that week. Still, the mission was considered low risk and proceeded as scheduled. At approximately 14:30 on November 8th, the sky was clear and the sea relatively calm as the SNS Protea drifted 5 kilometers offshore. The remaining crew members, Petty Officers Anelin Lovu, Ensign Peter Botha, and Medical Officer Dr. Mandla Kumalo, were inside the cabin analyzing data. In contrast, the other 3 officers worked on deck, adjusting sonar equipment that had malfunctioned since morning. What happened next occurred quickly, and later reconstructions relied heavily on Dr. Kumalo's testimony and partial footage from the vessel's weather camera. According to these accounts, a massive shadow appeared beneath the boat's starboard side. Petty Officer Ndlovu, who had just stepped onto the deck, reported seeing a dorsal fin momentarily break the surface, unusual behavior for a great white, which typically attacked from below. The impact came without warning. A great white shark, later estimated to be approximately 6 meters long and weighing nearly 2 tons, rammed the vessel with such force that the boat lurched violently to port. The 3 officers working on deck were thrown off balance. Before they could recover, a second strike hit the underside of the hull, causing the vessel to capsize. All 6 crew members were ejected into the water. The 3 officers inside the cabin, Ndlovu, Botha, and Dr. Kumalo, managed to swim clear of the overturned boat. The other 3 were not as fortunate. According to Dr. Kumalo's report, Lieutenant Commander Nkosi was dragged underwater immediately. The shark, exhibiting what marine biologists later described as highly unusual aggressive behavior, seized him with tremendous force. Despite desperate attempts by Ensign Botha to reach him, Nkosi disappeared beneath the surface within seconds. Petty Officer Mabaso, disoriented from the capsizing, struggled in the water approximately 5 meters from the overturned vessel. Dr. Kumalo and Ensign Botha reported seeing the shark's dorsal fin slicing through the water toward him. His screams alerted them, but the distance was too great. The shark attacked with devastating efficiency, inflicting a catastrophic bite to Mabaso's right leg. Despite Dr. Kumalo's immediate medical intervention after pulling him onto the exposed hull of the capsized vessel, Mabaso succumbed to blood loss within minutes. Ensign Venter, the 3rd casualty, had been trapped beneath equipment when the boat overturned. According to survivor accounts, he surfaced briefly, appearing disoriented and struggling to stay afloat. The 3 survivors instructed him to swim toward the hull, but he slipped beneath the surface before reaching them. Later examination determined he had drowned during the chaos, likely due to a head injury sustained during the capsizing. The 3 survivors clung to the overturned hull for nearly 3 hours before a fishing vessel spotted the wreckage. During this time, they reported seeing the shark circling repeatedly, sometimes striking the hull. Behavior marine biologists later classified as territorial rather than predatory. The incident prompted the South African Navy to overhaul safety protocols for small vessels in known shark territories. Subsequently, sonar testing operations were conducted from larger ships with reinforced hulls, and shark deterrent systems became standard issue. Dr. Kumalo, deeply affected by witnessing his colleagues' deaths, later established the Nkosi Venture Mabaso Foundation, which funded research into shark behavior and developed new technologies for predicting and preventing similar attacks. His testimony provided valuable insights into the previously undocumented great white aggression patterns. The shark was never captured, but tracking data collected from the area in subsequent months suggested it might have been one of the largest great whites ever recorded in South African waters, a female that local researchers had nicknamed Phantom, due to its elusive nature and unusual hunting patterns. A memorial plaque now stands at Cape Point Naval Station, commemorating the 3 officers who lost their lives in one of the most unusual shark encounters in South Africa's maritime history. In 2016, the waters off Mossel Bay on South Africa's Western Cape had long been recognized among adventure sports enthusiasts as a premier destination for kayaking, despite its notorious reputation as a great white shark hotspot. The region's unique marine ecosystem, characterized by seal colonies and deep underwater canyons, created ideal hunting grounds for these apex predators. Tourism brochures often highlighted the thrill of potentially glimpsing these magnificent creatures from the safety of tour boats. Yet solo kayaking in these waters carried risks that even experienced paddlers sometimes underestimated. Emma Carlisle, a 34-year-old British adventure athlete with 12 years of solo kayaking experience across 5 continents, had been drawn to the area specifically for its challenging conditions, having previously navigated the treacherous waters of Alaska's Inside Passage and New Zealand's storm-prone coastlines. Carlisle believed her extensive experience had prepared her for whatever Mossel Bay might present. Local maritime authorities had cautioned her about recent shark sightings. Still, Carlisle, who had documented her adventures for a popular outdoor lifestyle blog, considered such warnings part of the standard procedure, rather than a cause for serious concern. On the morning of March 17th, Carlisle launched her specially designed carbon fiber sea kayak from a small beach near Pinnacle Point. The weather conditions were ideal: clear skies, moderate winds, and gentle swells. She carried state-of-the-art safety equipment, including a satellite emergency beacon, marine radio, and shark deterrent devices. Her planned route would take her along the coastline for approximately 12 kilometers before circling back, keeping her within sight of land throughout the journey. For the first hour, Carlisle's excursion proceeded uneventfully. She later reported to investigating authorities that she had been photographing seabirds when she first noticed unusual turbulence in the water, approximately 20 meters ahead of her kayak. Initially, she assumed it was a seal, common in these waters and often curious about kayakers. Carlisle reduced her paddling pace to observe what she thought might make an interesting photo opportunity for her blog. The turbulence intensified suddenly, forming a distinct wake pattern that local fishermen would have immediately recognized as indicative of a large shark moving at speed just beneath the surface. Before Carlisle could process what was happening, her kayak jerked violently upward. The impact threw her forward, nearly capsizing the vessel. As she struggled to stabilize herself, a massive great white shark, later estimated by marine biologists to be approximately 4.5 meters long, breached directly beside her kayak. The force of the breach completely flipped the vessel, sending Carlisle into the water less than a meter from the shark. According to her subsequent statement to emergency responders, her survival training immediately kicked in. Rather than panicking, she attempted to climb back onto her overturned kayak, knowing that remaining in the water significantly increased her vulnerability. As she reached for the kayak's hull, the shark circled back with astonishing speed. What happened next occurred in seconds, but would forever alter Carlisle's life. The great white clamped onto her left arm below the elbow with devastating force. Rather than initiating the typical bite and release behavior sharks often exhibit when investigating unfamiliar objects, this shark maintained its grip and began to shake violently. The trauma surgeons who later treated Carlisle explained that the combination of 300-pound bite force and serrated teeth effectively severed her arm instantaneously. Remarkably, Carlisle did not lose consciousness. In what marine rescue personnel later described as an extraordinary display of presence of mind, she managed to use her right hand to remove the kayak leash from around her ankle and apply it as a makeshift tourniquet around what remained of her left arm. The entire attack lasted less than 30 seconds. The shark disappeared as quickly as it had arrived, leaving Carlisle bleeding heavily, but still conscious and clinging to her overturned kayak. Using her remaining arm and legs, she positioned herself atop the hull, elevating her injured limb to reduce blood loss. What saved Carlisle's life was a combination of extraordinary fortune and her calm resourcefulness. A local fishing vessel, the Meerman, captained by veteran fisherman Adrian Visser, happened to be returning to harbor and spotted the overturned kayak approximately 18 minutes after the attack. Visser and his crew quickly retrieved Carlisle from the water and applied proper medical tourniquets from their emergency kit. While radioing for emergency medical assistance, Carlisle was airlifted to a hospital and later transferred to a specialized trauma center in Cape Town, where surgeons performed additional procedures to clean and close her wound. Against considerable odds, she survived without developing serious infections or complications. In the years following the attack, Carlisle became an advocate for shark conservation, arguing against culling programs and emphasizing that she had entered the shark's territory knowingly. She authored a memoir titled The Surface Between, chronicling her recovery journey and relationship with the ocean after the attack. During public appearances, she often displayed her prosthetic arm, which featured a detailed tattoo of a great white shark silhouette. A reminder, she explained, of the ocean's power and resilience. The attack prompted local authorities to implement stricter solo kayaking regulations in areas known for shark activity. New safety measures included mandatory emergency beacons, buddy systems, and restricted access during peak feeding times. The incident also drew the attention of marine biologists, who studied it closely as part of ongoing research into great white behavior. They noted the bite's unusually aggressive and sustained nature, distinct from the more common investigatory sample bite that sharks typically use to identify unfamiliar objects. The case raised important questions about changing patterns in shark encounters and the potential influence of environmental stressors on their behavior. In 2008, the crystal-clear waters surrounding the island of Nosy Be off Madagascar's northwestern coast had long been celebrated for their exceptional biodiversity. The region's deep water trenches and vibrant coral reefs created a unique marine ecosystem that attracted tourists and scientific expeditions. Less publicized in travel brochures was the area's significant population of tiger sharks, whose territorial waters extended throughout the Mozambique Channel. The Madagascar Coast Guard maintained a small but efficient rescue unit on the island, responsible for monitoring tourist activities and responding to emergencies across a vast maritime territory. Captain Rakoto Andrianampoina Marina, an 18-year veteran of the Madagascar Coast Guard, commanded the rescue helicopter unit stationed at Nosy Be. The team conducted regular training exercises to maintain readiness for the scenarios they might encounter in their challenging jurisdiction. On September 23rd, under Captain Andrianampoina Marina's supervision, they performed a routine rescue drill approximately 3 kilometers offshore from Mbatalaoaka Beach. Warrant Officer Haja Razafindrakoto volunteered to play the role of a distressed swimmer during this particular exercise. The scenario simulated a tourist stranded after a boat capsize, a common emergency in the area. Lieutenant Tantali Randrianarasan operated the winch system while Sergeant Nerina Rakotondrabe managed communications and observed their aging but well-maintained Bell 412 helicopter from the cabin door. The weather conditions seemed perfect for training: minimal wind, excellent visibility, and calm seas. According to the meteorological report filed before the exercise, the water temperature registered at 27 degrees Celsius with moderate currents flowing north to south along the coastline. Warrant Officer Razafindrakoto wore a standard orange rescue suit equipped with emergency beacons and communication devices as he was lowered into the water at approximately 14:30 local time. The first phase of the exercise proceeded flawlessly. Razafindrakoto successfully simulated distress signals, and the helicopter maintained a perfect position overhead. After completing the required period in the water, Lieutenant Randrianarasan initiated the recovery process, lowering the rescue harness. Razafindrakoto secured himself properly, and the winch raised him toward the hovering aircraft. What happened next occurred with such speed that the subsequent investigation relied heavily on the helicopter's mounted cameras and the testimony of the 3 survivors. When Razafindrakoto had been raised approximately 4 meters above the water's surface, the team noticed unusual turbulence directly below. Before anyone could react, a tiger shark, later estimated to be nearly 4 meters long, launched itself from the water with extraordinary power. According to Sergeant Rakotondrabe's official statement, the shark's jaws clamped onto Razafindrakoto's right leg with such force that the helicopter lurched downward. The winch motor strained against the sudden additional weight, triggering emergency alarms in the cockpit. Captain Andrianampoina Marina reported that the aircraft's stability systems were momentarily compromised as the helicopter dropped nearly 2 meters in altitude before he could compensate. Razafindra Koto, suspended helplessly in mid-air, encountered a scenario no rescue training had ever contemplated. The shark maintained its grip, its substantial weight pulling against the winch system while its powerful body thrashed violently. Lieutenant Randrian Arison, witnessing the unprecedented attack, immediately increased the winch speed to maximum capacity while reporting the situation to Captain Andrian Ampoinemarina. For approximately 22 seconds, a time frame established by the helicopter's recording systems, the shark remained attached to Razafindra Koto's leg, creating a nightmarish tug-of-war between the aircraft and the predator. The helicopter's winch motor, designed for standard rescue operations but never tested against the weight of a large shark, emitted ominous mechanical protests. According to the maintenance chief who later examined the equipment, the system came within moments of catastrophic failure. After a particularly violent shake, the shark finally released its grip, disappearing swiftly into the depths. Razafindra Koto, remarkably still conscious despite catastrophic injuries to his lower right leg, was quickly pulled into the cabin, where Sergeant Rakotondrabe applied emergency medical procedures. Captain Andrian Ampoinemarina immediately diverted from the training exercise, radioing for emergency medical support and flying directly to a hospital at maximum speed. The medical team later reported that Razafindra Koto had suffered compound fractures to his tibia and fibula, along with severe tissue damage. Remarkably, no major arteries had been severed, a circumstance doctors attributed to the unusual angle of the bite and the structural support provided by the rescue harness straps that had partially absorbed the pressure. After multiple surgeries and intensive rehabilitation, Razafindra Koto retained his leg, though with significant mobility limitations that ended his active rescue career. The incident marked the first documented case of a shark attacking a person being hoisted by a helicopter, creating ripples through rescue communities worldwide. The Madagascar Coast Guard implemented substantial protocol changes for marine exercises, including shark spotters, protective cages for water-based training, and enhanced emergency response capabilities specific to marine predator encounters. Marine biologists studied the incident extensively, theorizing that the shark may have mistaken the dangling figure for prey, potentially attracted by the vibrations of the helicopter rotors that could have resembled struggling fish. The case became required study material for global rescue units operating in shark-inhabited waters. Captain Andrian Ampoinemarina was later awarded the National Merit Medal for his exceptional crisis handling. The recording of the incident, while restricted from public circulation, became an essential training tool for maritime rescue teams across the Indian Ocean region. Warrant Officer Razafindra Koto, after his recovery, became an instructor at the Coast Guard Academy, where he incorporated his extraordinary experience into training protocols designed to prepare rescue personnel for even the most improbable scenarios. In 2005, the Limpopo River Delta in northern Mozambique had long served as a critical water source for communities scattered across the arid landscape. With its labyrinthine channels and seasonally flooded plains, the expansive wetland system supported remarkable biodiversity that had drawn increasing ecotourism to the region over the previous decade. What many visitors, and indeed some local guides, underestimated was how dramatically the river's ecosystem had been changing. Rising sea levels had gradually increased saltwater intrusion up to 50 kilometers inland, creating brackish conditions that unwittingly welcomed new apex predators to territories they had rarely ventured. Teonamate, a 37-year-old naturalist with ancestral roots in the Delta communities, had established himself as one of the region's most knowledgeable eco-tour guides. His company, Delta Discoveries, specialized in small group canoe expeditions that showcased the river's spectacular bird life and occasional hippopotamus sightings. Namate grew up along these waterways, learning their patterns and secrets from his traditional fisherman grandfather. Despite his extensive experience, he failed to recognize the emerging danger lurking beneath the murky surface. On the morning of April 12th, Namate led a group of 6 international tourists, 2 retired ornithologists from Germany, a photographer from Japan, and 3 university students studying environmental science from Australia, on what was scheduled to be a 6-hour exploration of the Delta's central channels. The weather was ideal, with clear skies and temperatures hovering around 29 degrees Celsius. After unseasonal rains, the previous month's water level remained slightly higher than usual. According to statements later provided by the tourists, the expedition had proceeded uneventfully for approximately 3 hours. Namate impressed the group with his encyclopedic knowledge of local wildlife, identifying over 40 bird species and providing cultural context about the river's importance to indigenous communities. At approximately 11:15 a.m., the group paused in a wide, calm section of the river to photograph a colony of African openbill storks nesting in the trees along the eastern bank. Namate maneuvered their wooden canoe, a traditional vessel nearly 7 meters long, toward a partially submerged sandbar where they could stabilize it for better photography opportunities. As the boat glided to a stop, he stepped into the knee-deep water to anchor the craft manually, a routine practice he had performed countless times before. The water, stained brown with sediment, provided no visibility below the surface. What happened next occurred with such speed that the witnesses provided slightly varying accounts to authorities. The most consistent description came from Dr. Martha Schneider, one of the German ornithologists, who had been photographing the scene and inadvertently captured a partial sequence of the attack. According to her statement and corroborating camera evidence, Namate had taken no more than 3 steps from the canoe when he suddenly cried out and lurched sideways. There was a massive displacement of water around his lower body, followed by his immediate disappearance beneath the surface. The initial confusion aboard the canoe quickly gave way to horror, as the water around Namate's last position turned dark red. The attack was so violent that the displacement wave rocked the canoe itself. The tourists, none of whom had significant wilderness emergency training, attempted to locate Namate with boat paddles, but found no trace of him. Approximately 40 seconds after his disappearance, his body briefly resurfaced approximately 15 meters downstream, now missing one leg. Before anyone could react, he was pulled under again. Jakob Weber, the second German ornithologist, had the mind to use the emergency satellite phone Namate had stored in a waterproof container. Local emergency services, however, would require nearly 2 hours to reach their remote location. Following Namate's basic safety briefing from earlier that morning, the tourists managed to navigate the canoe to the nearest designated emergency extraction point, a small fishing village approximately 3 kilometers downstream. 3 days later, Namate's severely mutilated remains were discovered by local fishermen washed up on a sandbank nearly 7 kilometers from the attack site. Forensic examination confirmed what marine biologists had already suspected. The distinctive bite patterns and dental impressions matched those of a bull shark, Carcharhinus lucus, a species notorious for its ability to tolerate freshwater and its exceptionally aggressive hunting behavior. Subsequent investigation revealed that several local fishermen had reported unusual fish kills and water disturbances in the previous weeks, but these accounts had not been widely shared or officially documented. One elderly fisherman later testified that he had observed a large shark-like creature nearly 2 weeks before Namate's death. However, he had been dismissed when reporting it to local authorities, who had attributed his sighting to crocodile activity or exaggeration. The incident triggered an urgent scientific survey of the Limpopo Delta system, revealing the presence of at least 3 adult bull sharks that had ventured far upriver. An unprecedented discovery in documented regional history. Climate researchers and marine biologists linked the phenomenon to changing environmental conditions, particularly the increasing salinity of traditionally freshwater systems due to rising sea levels and altered rainfall patterns. After the tragedy, Namate's widow Esperanza established the Teo Namate Foundation, which implemented a regional shark monitoring program and educational initiative for river guides and local communities. Warning signs were erected at river access points, and all tour operators were required to carry specialized shark deterrent equipment and enhanced communication systems. The tragedy also sparked important research into bull shark migration patterns in African river systems, ultimately discovering previously undocumented breeding grounds in multiple river deltas along the eastern African coast. Dr. Luisa Montero, the marine biologist who led this research, credited Namate's death with potentially saving many lives through the awareness and preventative measures it generated across the region's growing ecotourism industry. In 2011, the Mamanuca Island chain of Fiji had established itself as one of the South Pacific's premier destinations for destination weddings and bachelor parties, with its pristine beaches, crystal-clear waters, and exclusive resorts. Many tourists were unaware of the archipelago's complex marine ecosystem that supported over 30 species of sharks. Local traditions had long revered these creatures, particularly the tiger shark, known in Fijian mythology as Dakuwaka, the guardian of the reef. Resort staff typically provided basic safety briefings to visitors, though these warnings were sometimes disregarded by vacationers more focused on celebration than precaution. Zachary Thornfield, a 29-year-old investment banker from Boston, had chosen the exclusive Tokariki Island resort venue for his bachelor weekend. He invited 5 close friends from his college rowing team: Maxwell Rutherford, Preston Wellington, Harrison Blackwood, Jackson Montgomery, and the best man Daniel Farnsworth. The group had arrived on May 23rd, occupying one of the resort's premium beachfront villas with a private dock and chartered catamaran. According to staff accounts, the first 2 days proceeded without incident, filled with scuba diving, fishing expeditions, and evening cocktails. The resort's activity coordinator, Samisi Rokotuivuna, had conducted a standard safety orientation upon their arrival, emphasizing water safety protocols, including the strict prohibition against swimming after sunset when certain marine predators became more active. On the evening of May 26th, the 3rd day of their stay, the group chartered a sunset cruise aboard the resort's 15-meter catamaran, the Maramavu. The vessel was captained by Josiah Vatanitawake, with first mate Elisa Nabukavu assisting. According to the subsequent investigation report, the cruise departed the resort marina at approximately 16:30, carrying the 6 Americans and a small crew, including a bartender and chef who prepared a lavish seafood dinner. The catamaran is anchored in a sheltered cove approximately 3 kilometers from the resort, in a location known for its spectacular sunset views against the backdrop of Monariki Island, famously featured in the film Cast Away. Captain Vatanitawake later reported that the Americans had consumed significant quantities of alcohol throughout the afternoon and evening, though he maintained they did not appear severely impaired. As the sun began to set around 1845, Captain Vatanitawake advised the group that they would be returning to the resort within 30 minutes and explicitly reminded them that swimming was not permitted at dusk. According to his statement, he specifically warned about increased shark activity in the area, noting that local fishermen had recently observed several large tiger sharks in nearby waters. Despite these warnings, at approximately 19:10, as the crew was preparing to raise the anchor, Thornfield spontaneously jumped into the water, shouting that he wanted one last swim before getting shackled for life. Caught up in the moment, Rutherford, Wellington, Blackwood, and Montgomery followed him into the water. Only the best man, Farnsworth, remained aboard, later telling investigators he had felt uneasy about swimming in darkening waters. Captain Vatanitawake immediately ordered them to return to the vessel, but the men, buoyed by alcohol and excitement, began swimming away from the catamaran. First mate Nabukavu rushed to deploy the vessel's tender boat to retrieve them, when the evening's celebratory atmosphere shattered. According to multiple witness accounts, Wellington suddenly screamed and was violently pulled underwater approximately 20 meters from the catamaran. The water around him erupted in turbulence as the other swimmers began shouting and frantically swimming toward the vessel. Captain Vatanitawake immediately activated the catamaran's powerful deck lights, illuminating the chaos unfolding in the water. A tiger shark, later estimated by marine biologists to be approximately 4.5 meters long, had seized Wellington around the torso. As his friends reached him, the predator maintained its grip, beginning the characteristic side-to-side thrashing motion that tiger sharks use to tear flesh. Thornfield, Rutherford, and Montgomery attempted to intervene, pummeling the shark while Blackwood tried pulling Wellington free. In what first mate Nabukavu later described as an act of extraordinary quick thinking, Farnsworth grabbed a foam pool noodle from the catamaran's recreational equipment and dove into the water with it. Swimming directly toward the melee, he forced the flexible foam tube between the shark's gills in a desperate attempt to disrupt its breathing. The unusual tactic momentarily confused the predator, causing it to release Wellington and retreat into deeper water. The crew retrieved all 5 men using the tender boat and the catamaran's emergency rescue equipment. Wellington had suffered catastrophic injuries to his abdomen and lower chest. Despite immediate first aid efforts by the crew and his friends, he lost consciousness due to extensive blood loss. Captain Vatanitawake radioed for emergency assistance while navigating at maximum speed toward the resort's medical facility. A medical evacuation helicopter was dispatched from Nadi, but Wellington was pronounced dead shortly before it arrived. Autopsy reports later confirmed that he had succumbed to a combination of massive trauma, blood loss, and shock, with over 60% of his liver destroyed by the initial bite. The incident sent shockwaves through Fiji's tourism industry and triggered a comprehensive review of safety protocols across all resorts. The Fijian Maritime Safety Authority implemented stricter regulations regarding sunset and nighttime water activities, requiring all charter vessels to carry enhanced shark deterrent systems and additional emergency medical equipment. The tragedy transformed what should have been Thornfield's wedding celebration into a somber homecoming, with his friends' remains accompanying him. The wedding was postponed indefinitely, and Thornfield later established the Preston Wellington Ocean Safety Foundation, which funded shark research and improved safety education for tourists throughout the South Pacific. Marine biologists conducted extensive studies of the incident, concluding that the attack likely resulted from a combination of factors, including poor visibility at dusk, the shark possibly confusing the splashing swimmers with injured prey, and the shark's potential attraction to food particles in the water from the seafood dinner preparation earlier that evening. The resort installed a memorial plaque at its main beach, a sobering reminder of the ocean's hidden dangers lurking beneath its postcard-perfect surface. Captain Vadanitawake continued working in Fiji's tourism industry, incorporating his first-hand experience into enhanced safety briefings that, according to resort management, significantly improved visitor compliance with water safety protocols in the years following the tragedy. In 2015, the coastal waters surrounding Vancouver Island had long been recognized as one of the world's premier locations for studying orca populations. The Salish Sea's complex network of channels, inlets, and straits provided ideal habitat for several distinct pods of these magnificent marine mammals, drawing researchers from prestigious institutions worldwide. Unlike the more frequently documented resident orcas that primarily fed on salmon, the region's less studied transients orcas, mammal hunters with more unpredictable migration patterns, remained somewhat enigmatic to the scientific community. Their hunting behaviors and social structures presented ongoing questions that researchers like Dr. Rachel Taylor had dedicated their careers to answering. Dr. Taylor, a 42-year-old marine biologist with the Pacific Cetacean Research Institute, had spent 15 years documenting orca behavior throughout the Pacific Northwest. Her groundbreaking work on communication patterns between matrilineal groups had earned her considerable respect in marine science circles. On June 7th, she led a 4-person research team aboard the Institute's primary research vessel, the Cetacean Surveyor, a 12-meter purpose-built craft equipped with hydrophones, observation platforms, and specialized photography equipment. The research team included Dr. Taylor's longtime colleague, bioacoustic specialist Dr. Jameson Whitfield, graduate student and data analyst Penelope Zhao, and the vessel's experienced captain Marcus Okalik, who had navigated these waters for over 2 decades. Their expedition that day focused on monitoring a recently identified group of transient orcas spotted unusually far into the Johnstone Strait, potentially indicating a shift in hunting territories. Weather conditions were optimal that morning. Clear visibility, calm seas, and minimal wind, creating ideal conditions for observation and acoustic recording. Captain Okalik positioned the vessel approximately 200 meters from where the orcas had last been sighted, maintaining the legally mandated distance while allowing the team to deploy their hydrophone array. At approximately 9:45, they made visual contact with the pod, 5 individuals moving in tight formation. Dr. Taylor immediately identified the distinctive dorsal fin of a large male she had cataloged the previous season as T137, estimated to be approximately 30 years old and weighing nearly 6 tons. The team began their standard observation protocol, photographing dorsal fins for identification while recording underwater vocalizations. The encounter proceeded routinely for nearly 40 minutes. The orcas appeared engaged in typical foraging behavior, showing no unusual interest in the research vessel. While Dr. Whitfield monitored the acoustic feeds below deck, Zhao collected respiratory pattern data from the observation platform. Captain Okalik maintained the vessel's position using minimal engine power to reduce underwater noise interference. What happened next occurred so suddenly that the team's multiple recording devices proved essential in reconstructing the sequence of events. At 10:26, without any apparent provocation, T137 abruptly changed direction, submerging briefly before surfacing again, facing directly toward the Cetacean Surveyor. Dr. Taylor, recognizing this unusual behavior, instructed Captain Okalik to increase their distance from the pod. Before he could fully engage the engines, T137 disappeared beneath the surface. The underwater cameras captured what happened next. The massive orca accelerated directly toward the vessel with extraordinary speed, swimming with the distinctive rapid tail movements researchers had previously observed only during hunting pursuits. Captain Okalik had barely initiated evasive maneuvers when T-137 struck the hull's port side with tremendous force, his full body weight concentrated at the point of impact. The collision violently rocked the vessel, sending equipment crashing to the deck and throwing the researchers off balance. Zhao, who had been standing on the observation platform, suffered a sprained wrist when she was thrown against the railing. Despite being reinforced for research in orca habitats, the vessel's hull sustained significant damage. A visible dent nearly 2 meters long that later examination revealed had compromised the structural integrity of 2 supporting ribs. Rather than retreating after the initial impact, T-137 circled the vessel twice at high speed, creating a substantial wake that further destabilized the already damaged craft. The underwater cameras captured extraordinarily rare footage of what marine behaviorists later described as threat posturing. The orca's body oriented vertically in the water, head raised, with distinctive jaw-clapping behavior typically observed only during confrontations between competing males. Captain Okalik, drawing on his extensive experience, maintained remarkable composure throughout the encounter. He immediately initiated the vessel's emergency protocols, instructing the researchers to secure themselves and all loose equipment, while he carefully maneuvered away from the agitated cetacean. After the orca made 2 complete circles around the vessel, it abruptly departed, rejoining its pod approximately 400 meters away. The incident lasted less than 3 minutes but left the research team shaken. Captain Okalik conducted an immediate damage assessment, determining that while the hull breach remained above the waterline, the structural compromise necessitated immediate return to port. He radioed the Coast Guard to report the incident and request an escort back to Campbell River Harbor as a precautionary measure. In the subsequent investigation, multiple theories emerged regarding T-137's unprecedented behavior. Dr. Jensen Miyamoto, a specialist in cetacean behavior who reviewed the footage, suggested the possibility that the hydrophone frequencies may have inadvertently resembled distress calls from another orca pod, potentially triggering a territorial response. Others hypothesized that the orca may have mistaken the vessel's outline for that of a competing predator, particularly given the unusual angle of approach caused by the morning sunlight. Dr. Taylor herself proposed what eventually became the most widely accepted explanation, that T-137 may have been exhibiting redirected aggression, following an unseen conflict within the pod or with another marine mammal before the research team's arrival. Subsequent observation of T-137 revealed fresh rake marks on his flank that were not present in photographs taken earlier that season, evidence of a possible recent confrontation with another male orca. The incident prompted the Pacific Cetacean Research Institute to revise its vessel design specifications and field protocols. The next-generation research craft featured additional hull reinforcement and incorporated new acoustic technology designed to prevent any potential misinterpretation of signals by marine mammals. Dr. Taylor continued her research on transient orcas, publishing a groundbreaking paper on their complex social dynamics that included an analysis of the unusual encounter. Captain Okalik was later awarded a Maritime Safety Commendation for his exemplary crisis handling. The damaged cetacean surveyor, after extensive repairs, was returned to service with modifications that incorporated lessons learned from the encounter, including enhanced observation platforms and improved emergency stabilization systems. The incident remains one of the best documented cases of apparently intentional ramming behavior by an orca against a vessel, a rare glimpse into the complex and sometimes unpredictable nature of these intelligent marine predators. In the months following the incident, Dr. Taylor and her team conducted extensive reviews of historical orca-vessel interactions throughout the region, discovering 7 unreported cases of similar behavior dating back to the 1970s. Most of these encounters had been dismissed as accidental collisions or exaggerated accounts by recreational boaters. Their comparative analysis revealed a disturbing pattern. All incidents had occurred in areas where naval sonar testing had been conducted within the previous 72 hours. While no naval operations had been officially scheduled near Johnstone Strait on the day of their encounter, Dr. Taylor's subsequent Freedom of Information request revealed that a submarine detection exercise had indeed been conducted approximately 85 kilometers away the previous day. This discovery led to a groundbreaking collaborative research initiative between marine biologists and naval authorities to establish safer operational protocols in orca habitats. The psychological impact on the research team proved significant as well. Dr. Whitfield, who had spent decades working with marine mammals without incident, developed a pronounced anxiety around water-based fieldwork. He later established an innovative remote monitoring program utilizing autonomous drones and AI-powered tracking systems that allowed researchers to maintain greater distances from potentially stressed marine mammals while still collecting high-quality data. Captain Okalik, conversely, advocated for enhanced marine mammal approach training for vessel operators throughout British Columbia, developing a curriculum that incorporated simulation exercises based directly on their encounter with T-137. The Canadian Coast Guard eventually adopted his program as mandatory training for all personnel operating in known orca territories.